Wayne Brown's views on the Maunga and Western Springs tree situations, as discussed in a 20th of September interview and in response to a question asked at a mayoral candidate debate on the 21st of September 2022. He also touches upon Tūpuna Maunga Authority's co-governance as it pertains to Auckland Council's role in the partnership. Firstly, Wayne's interview with Anna Radford from Honour the Maunga. So what's your view on the way Tūpuna Maunga Authority has engaged with local communities over the last 3 years?
Well, I think the word I used was distressing. It hasn't been positive. It hasn't been even-handed. It seems to have come from a position where they've determined what they want before they've even spoken to people. And it's an approach which doesn't seem to reflect what the people in the district want. And the people in the district are a mixture of people who, from all backgrounds and all ethnicities, and the legislation actually stated that they had to consider all of the communities, not just one particular sector.
Yeah, thank you. Now, one of the incoming council's first tasks will be to select its 6 representatives to sit on the authority for the coming 3 years. What qualities will you be looking for in those representatives, bearing in mind that the whole council gets to have a say, as do the local boards with Maunga in them, but the mayor's obviously an important stakeholder in this?
Well, definitely, and the mayor probably is going to be the leading decider of who gets there. When we shell out bits and pieces, I'll be looking for for candidates who balance their existing views rather than reinforce them. And so we need to have a situation where there is vigorous debate from both sides, so we get something that goes down the middle between the strong views of those proposing a single ethnic view of things and those who are representing the whole community. It's not just about trees either. The idea they're driving sports clubs off very long held positions on some maunga is nasty, I'd have to say.
Thank you. So if elected as mayor, what action will you take to avoid the authority's Auckland Council membership being stacked to represent a particular political persuasion?
Well, voters have got a real choice this time because my only real opponent as a FISO is backed by the Greens and the Labor. So he won't be able to question anything that comes down from above. So I'll make absolutely sure that that doesn't happen. I'm in the unusual position of having been appointed by both John Key and Helen Clark to things in the past. So I'm bang in the middle. And you can expect a very middle of the road view that will balance whatever doctrinaire views are already there.
Great, thank you. So can you tell me just sort of in general, what's your view on the Maunga tree situation, particularly in relation to the trees, the proposal to fell the trees?
Well, during the lockdown, when the streets were clear, I got on my bicycle and my wife was in hospital at the time, so I couldn't see her. And I spent the days, I pedalled to every maunga and climbed them. And the nicest part about it is going up through the trees. And I think Mount Hobson is probably the best example of all those because it's the trees that make it lovely. And they are a nice mixture, and amongst there were walnuts and things like that, which are definitely not indigenous trees, but they are lovely. We have some that are deciduous and some that are evergreen, and we're one of the few countries in the world where native things weren't deciduous. But I think that I like the colours, and I like the piece, and I like the look of it. And I notice on my own subdivisions, when I do subdivisions, I always leave as many trees as I can, because I need to explain to people, you actually make more money if you leave the trees up. For those people who don't have a holistic view about trees, I can get them by saying, you'll actually make more money if you leave the trees there. And they go, oh, really? Hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, a few developers could take a leaf out of that book, certainly the ones in our local area anyway. Yes.
Well, I'm hoping to talk to some of those guys and say, mate, think about think about that from that point of view. It's not just if you haven't got a green bone in your body, just use the money-making bones a bit more cleverly.
So in terms of the Maunga trees, do you support them being felled or saved or something in between?
I think they should just be managed to keep nice cover and continuously improve it if they can. And notice that our life is enriched by having a mixture of deciduous as well as evergreen. And one of the nice things about some little towns, and I think of Kaya, which is a town with probably 80% Maori population, and in Northland it is heavily planted out in deciduous trees, and they have wonderful autumns and springs there, and we don't kind of get that anymore. And Auckland is becoming bleakly grey with building if we're not careful.
Yeah, exactly. So Auckland Council's governing body is responsible for reviewing and approving the authority's draft operational plan and budget every year. So how do you intend to vote if there's significant tree felling expenditure proposed in those future budgets?
Well, I can't believe how much money they spend cutting down trees. I mean, my last house looked over Western Springs before we moved to K Road, and I quite like those pine trees. It looked good, nice in the background. But then they managed to convince themselves they shouldn't be there for various reasons. And they managed to spend $800,000 cutting down some pine trees. A chat to any forestry contractor could have done that for $15,000. So even if you are going to cut them down, don't do it in such a stupid manner. But I think that one of the best ways to prevent bad things happening is starve organisations of money to do bad things.
Yeah. So do I take it from that response that you wouldn't vote the Tūpuna Maunga Authority significant budget to fell trees?
Oh, I would be culling that part of their budget.
Yeah. Also, is there anything else you'd like to briefly add in relation to the Maunga tree topic? Well,
the Maunga Authority is an example of co-governance, and it should work better than it is. It's been given to us. There's been a lot of people are saying, I'm going to get rid of co-governance. Well, it's part of the law, so you've got to learn how to make sure that it is co-governance, not mono-governance. It's not just trees. I mean, the distressing information we were given by the soccer club from out at Mangere Mountain was just vindictive, nasty behaviour, really. And I don't play soccer, but those people have been there for a long time and invested a lot. And using the leasehold arrangements to be vindictive about sports people is just not what I think the thing was ever set up for. And I'll make sure that we have enough people on there that we can oppose that sort of situation. And I'll have some influence in even who are supported on the actual Maori side of that too. I mean, I'm quite close to Ngāti Whātua having their battles with various other mana whenua sort of invading the place, and I'm well aware that all is not well on both sides of this equation. So it does need to be redressed, and it was set up with the best of intentions, but the road to perdition is paved with good intentions, and so we need to correct it and seriously correct that.
Here's Wayne's response to a question asked at the Auckland Ratepayer Alliance mayoral candidate debate on the 21st of September 2022.
Hi, I'm Anna Radford. I head up one of several community groups who is advocating to save thousands of trees from being felled on Auckland's Maunga volcanic cones. So we're in the midst of a climate emergency. Auckland Council this last year funded the felling of hundreds of mostly healthy mature pines at Western Springs and tens of thousands of native understory plants. Then it replanted in natives. That's just cost ratepayers millions. Tūpuna Maunga Authority, which is a ratepayer funded body, wants to destroy around 2,500 trees on Auckland's volcanic cones just because they're exotic. at a cost of millions to ratepayers. So we're in the midst of a climate emergency. Auckland Council has charged ratepayers a climate levy, yet the council's wanting to vote millions on felling trees. I'd like to know what each candidate position is on this matter.
I think Anna's fought a good fight, really, and good on you for doing that, you know, because it can be depressing. The Maunga Authority is one of the two co-governance ones have been given. We've allowed it to wander away from part of the legislation is that they are required to take care of all residents, and it's got hijacked by a certain sector. Some of the things that are coming out of it, as well as the chopping down of trees, which is very depressing, is they're moving to boot the soccer club off Mount Mangere, which is completely nuts and wrong and unhelpful. So it's got to be balanced with forceful characters representing the public, is to at least balance the forceful characters representing the alternative interests. In terms of chopping down trees, which I oppose, I can't also believe how unbelievably incompetently expensive they are. I mean, my last house overlooked the pines at Western Springs, and I loved them. They didn't need to be chopped down for a starter, but if you were going to chop them down, how the hell they could spend $800,000 chopping them down is beyond me. I mean, there are logging gangs could have done it for 10 grand, so that they did not only do the wrong things, they managed to do them incompetently and inexpensively, which is a heinous crime.